Hello and welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. We are here to discuss and deliberate on a biting issue, an issue that has dominated the headlines in many of the local papers, especially in Herald. It's a very sad incident which has occurred, which could have even turned fatal. God forbid something like this never happens. We are speaking about the recent incident where two children in the Taleigao locality were brutally bitten and injured by a pet Rottweiler belonging to a family living in the Taleigao area. While it is known that Rottweilers are very ferocious animals, and there have been incidents of their skirmishes and their attacks. But what has really moved the basic society, not just in Panjim but all over Goa, because one would wonder why such a dog bite incident has developed into such a big issue. The reason is that there is this human aspect of it. There are two children who could have suffered a fate which would have been very tragic. They're still brutally injured and they are suffering. They're still in hospital. The little girl, her upper torso and her face and her head are injured and bitten into. The young boy is also very badly bitten in his arms and other parts of his body. And of course the incident is known. It's just that there was this mother and two of her children who were generally going for an evening stroll. Their father happens to be a Zomato delivery person. He wasn't there, and they were just walking around, and then this particular dog of this family happened to be on the other side of the gate and came out and obviously didn't attack the children right away. They were snarling and they were kind of barking and and so on and so forth. And apparently, when of course my panelist here, he will give further details. But to cut a long story short, the dog was allowed, and circumstances were such that the particular Rottweiler ended up attacking these children and biting them. But the tragedy is, post that, neither the owner nor his staff or his family members, they just turned away in a manner that is most inhumane and despicable. And there was nobody to even take them to the hospital. The ambulance came late, and the series of circumstances catapulted into something that was that became very close to a very serious tragedy. Anyway, we'll get into all of that. But I think the reason why we need to extrapolate and unpack a lot of what has happened is also look into this whole issue of pet dogs and also stray dogs and the conflicts they have with society. And the point here is that animals need a lot of care, a lot of attention, a lot of looking after, and the idea is not to brand an animal as a wild beast and so on and so forth, but ideally to ensure that these animals who are ultimately, they can't speak and they're like children. The kind of nurturing and the training is a acute and a very important responsibility which many dog owners do not seem to understand and follow. At the same time, there are different rules and regulations governing the management of such animals and pets, and as well as the stray ones. All of this, and the reason why we are taking this up is because these things really matter to a good society, a proper civilization. And if you look at countries in the West, a lot of these rules are not only governed but are followed. We are really privileged and honored to have a very good and eminent panelists, and they're all experts in their respective fields. One of them, of course, Vivek, has been a part of the whole scenario, as it were, as it unfolded. So I'll introduce them one by one. On my extreme right is Sanchita Banerjee Rodriguez. She's a trustee of the Panjim Animal Welfare Society, PAWS, and does a lot of important work in terms of rescuing and looking after animals, especially because they don't have a voice. Next to her is Dr. Marvin Lopes. He's a veterinary doctor, but former deputy director of the animal husbandry department. and very prominent, person in his own right, and he will obviously lend a lot to this particular debate. On my left is Norma Alvarez, the president of the People for Animals, here in a very different avatar from what she normally is, but very welcome, Norma, for your insights. And as I mentioned a couple of times, Vivek Bandekar, he's a Taleigao local, and has been a very strong voice for the community as far as this incident is concerned. I'll start with Vivek because let him set the ball rolling as far as the incident is concerned. Briefly, if you could just recap what happened, and then we'll take it from there.
हय सो सगळ्यांक येवकार आनी म्हजें नांव भंडारी विवेक भंडारी ओके
My apologies.
Yes.
Vivek Bhandari, I stand corrected. Yeah.
ओके सो पयलीं म्हणटकच एकूच खूबच अनफॉर्च्युनेट इन्सिडेंट जाल्ले आसा त्या दीस वीच इज ऑन संडे सो त्या दीस कितें जालें म्हणटकच आवय आपल्या भुरग्यांक घेवन वॉकाक गेल्ली आनी वॉकाक वतकच ताजे बरोबर 3 जाण भुरगीं आशिल्लीं 2 जाण नासलीं 3 जाण आसलीं एक अरावंड 2.5 वर्साचे 3 वर्साचे सुमार आसतले धाकटे दुसरे असले 5 वर्साचो चलो आनी तिसरो असलो तो 7 वर्साची चली सो वता आसतना ती अशी एक रावंड मारता आसतना ते जो रॉट वायलर घर आसा बंगलो आसा ताच्या समोर पावली आनी ताजे उपरांत ती गेट एक ओपन आशिल्ली तांची जी रॉट वायलर जो आसता ती गेट ओपन आशिल्ली आनी रॉट वायलरान पळयतकच तोय भायर सरलो थंयसरल्यान घरासून आनी तांचे कडेन येवन तांचो ते वास घेवपाक लागलो सो स्टार्टेड स्निफींग ताजे उपरांत कितें जालें म्हणटकच ताजे बरोबर ती मेडूय आयली तांच्या बंगल्यांतली आनी तांचे बरोबर ताणें सांगलें की मेडान सांगलें की वो कुछ नहीं करेगा काय करपाचो ना सो तुमी काय भियनाका म्हणून पण ऑल ऑफ अ सडन रॉट वायलराचे कितें जालें खबर ना पण ताणें स्ट्रायक घेतलो आनी ताणें पयलीं चल्याक अटॅक केलो वीच हू वॉज 5 years old सो 5 वर्साच्या चल्याक अटॅक करतकच ताका धरून मातसो ओडटकच ताणी चल्याक सोडलो आनी ते 7 yearsची जे चली आशिल्ले ताका ताणें गळ्याक धरलो हांगासर मानेक धरलो आनी मानेक धरतकच तो इतलो टायट ताणें धरलो की ताणें तो सोडूकूच ना आनी सारको हालोवपाक लागलो सारकीच ओके लकीली म्हणपाचें की ते 2.5 काय 3 वर्साचे जी धाकटे चली आशिल्ले ताका ताणीं हात सुद्दां लावंक ना ओके आनी ते कशे तरी सेफ जाले थंयसरल्यान आनी हांगासर आमी म्हाका दिसता 2-3 जाण आयले म्हणजे मेडा बरोबर आनी 2-3 जाण ट्राय केले ताका ओडपाक रॉट वायलराक बट इट डिडंट हॅपन सो ताजे उपरांत मेड जी आसा ती धांवली आनी ते सायडीचे लोक आयले ताजे उपरांत ते रॉट वायलराक असो व्हेलो म्हणटकच इतले जाल्ले उपरांत सगळे ती चली सगळे रक्तान हांगा बुडलेले ते 7 वर्साचे आशिल्ले ते कित्याक ताका हांगासरूय कट पडिल्लो असोय कट पडिल्लो कित्याक हांव काल GMCन वचून आयलो सो हांवें सारकें पळयलां की ताका तोंडाकूय लागलेलें आसा माथ्याकूय लागलेलें आसा ते सगळे स्टिचीज आसा ताजे शी इज फायन नाव पूण ताजे उपरांत कितें जालें चल्याचें रगत चलयेचें रगत तेजी आवय ती पळोवन सारकी ताका घुंवळ येयल्ले भशेन जाली ओके ताजे उपरांत कितें जालें आमचो जो रेजिडेंट आसा थंयसरलो शेजारी तो आयलो ताणी येवन मागीर ते सगळे पळयतकच कळ्ळें की बाबा इतले सगळे इन्सिडेंट जाल्ले आसा म्हणून ताजे उपरांत ताणी एम्बुलन्साक आपयले ताजे उपरांत ताणी पुलिसांक कॉल केलो एम्बुलन्साक 7:25 कितें तरी कॉल केल्लो वीच केम एट अरावंड 7:55 अशें कितें तरी डिले जालो मातसो बट इट हॅपन्ड सो थंय चड वेळ रावचो पडलो ताजे उपरांत एम्बुलन्सान घातले आनी मागीर तांकां व्हेले सो ही सगळी सिनारियो जाली ते दीस 5 वर्साच्या चल्याकूय स्टिचीस पडल्या ताकाय तोंडाचेर स्टिचीस पडल्या बट ही इज ऑल्सो फायन चलयेक मातशें उलोवपाक त्रास जाता कित्याक ताका अशें म्हणजे तकले कडल्यान मातशे स्टिचीस पडिल्ले आसा सो इट्स व्हेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर हर टू टॉक रायट नाव बट शी इज क्वायट गूड नाव बट देन या रिकवरीक मातसो टायम वतलो MRI स्कॅन अजुनूय उरला कित्याक हॉस्पिटलान सांगलां की अजुनूय टायम लागतलो तांकां स्कॅन करपाक डिस्चार्ज ते म्हणटाले की आयज नाल्यार फाल्यां जातले बट I have no update, so I need to check on that. So, ये तरी सध्या जाल्ले scenario.
Right. Now, see, from whatever we heard from him and whatever we've read in the papers and so on and so forth, what do you find the most striking in this whole incident? What is the takeaway from this? What do we learn and what is surprising or shocking?
See, one of the things which is very obvious is that animal, to my mind and from the scenario that he has related, it is not rigorously trained at all. Because the animal has enormous strength. In fact, I did a little research and a little later I'll probably tell you about the Rottweilers, but it is a very, very strong and powerful animal. It's not just another pet. And it is not the animal as so much to be blamed as much as the training. When you own a Rottweiler, you have to be aware that you have to train it and discipline it to listen to your commands. You simply cannot pull it back, because the Rottweiler's strength is 3 times what your strength is.
Right.
And besides, Rottweilers are very self-willed dogs. They are powerful dogs. They have a sense of their own worth. So if it has decided, if it has bitten somebody or thought to bite, I believe from your newspaper report that it was sniffing it around when the mother said, please take the dog
Right,
away.
right.
Yes.
And if a command was given which the dog would listen to, the dog might have backed. But pulling it when it was trying to go forward meant that you were going against the dog's will. And so the first thing that I can figure out is that the dog is not trained. And if you own a Rottweiler and you do not train it, you are totally at fault. It is a very, very serious offense to own an animal which is powerful, which is in the neighborhood, which is among a community. Because another very important thing that I feel is that the dog is not socialized. The whole background of a Rottweiler training is that when it is very young, you socialize the animal, which means you take it in the community, because the Rottweiler is a dog which protects the family. Basically, the Rottweiler protects. You are the owner, he protects you. It understands that this is your wife, children, maybe brother, maybe grandfather, whatever is the environs of your family, and it says, this is my job to protect. Perhaps the gate being open, it may have thought that they are intruders. I cannot think what it thought. Second thing is, the Rottweiler should have been trained not to go out of the gate.
Right.
There is no training in that Rottweiler, because they say the animal, the powerful breeds have to be trained and trained repeatedly, because their own self-will comes up. And you should recognize that, suppose you said, come to the Rottweiler, and it's not coming, it means it's already testing whether you are the boss or it is the boss.
Right.
Which means you reassert your training. So from the incident that he has related, I feel the dog is not trained. The owner has not bothered about training it. Perhaps it's a prestige symbol to own a Rottweiler, but that is not enough at all with a powerful dog like the Rottweiler. Second thing is, I am really appalled at the inhumanity of the family who owned the Rottweiler. The first thing when you managed to get that dog under your control was maybe leash it, tie it up, and run to see what help you can render to this poor woman and 3 children, 2 of whom are bleeding badly. It takes neighbors to come. It takes people around to call an ambulance. You have cars. If you own Rottweilers, you surely have cars, maybe 2 cars.
Right.
And you should have been the first to take them to the hospital and ensure that some care is taken, instead of simply closing the doors on them or whatever else they did. These are my takeaways from what he relates.
Dr. I'll just stress on another important point. It just says this whole humanity in society, which Norma referred to and Vivek also referred to, and it's happening a lot, in the sense that one sees incidents of this happening regularly. But as a senior doctor, veterinary doctor, can you just elaborate a little bit on what Norma said about the whole species, or this whole breed, and what makes them very different from other breeds?
Yeah, so these guys, the Rottweilers and the Pit Bull Terriers, they have a different kind of a bite, right? Their jaws move this way, so they can crush any bone also. So that's why they're considered as very dangerous dogs. And Rottweilers are very aggressive. But in general, Rottweiler is always aggressive, is aggressive. But you can't generalize. I have seen in my practice Rottweilers who are very friendly. And I have seen Rottweilers who are restrained by training. Okay, so temperament is also a factor. So, but my message is that, first of all, don't keep dogs as trophies.
Right.
This is one thing which I am observing. The owner can afford to buy the most dangerous dogs. They buy those dogs and they keep the maids or the servants in charge. There is no, these dogs today have become like companion animals also. They need interaction with the owners. And when they get that interaction with the owners, they get the affection and the discipline. That's the time the dog understands everything.
Right.
Like Norma said, when they are growing up, the social interactions with other people also helps a lot. But what I see is that people just I want a Rottweiler, so a Rottweiler is brought, but then everybody gets fed up, and the maid or the servant is looking after the dog.
Yeah.
So the dog has not seen that kind of training or affection, and as long as it's a Labrador or a Golden Retriever, fine.
Right. Right.
They don't attack. But Rottweilers are very dangerous. Till now, I have completed almost 35 years practicing.
Right.
But till now, when a Rottweiler comes to my clinic, I'm very cautious.
But then what is this whole fascination for this breed? I'll ask you, Sanjita, also after you finish. Why is this fascination?
Yeah, so the people, many people have come to me, doctor, I want a good guard dog. I want a dangerous dog. And I tell them, why? This dog is going to put you in legal problems.
Right.
He's going to bite someone and somebody's going to file a suit on you.
Right.
Why do you want that?
Right.
And then he says, really, they can do that? I said, of course. People don't even know that they can be sued.
Right.
For if their dog bites.
Right. Absolutely.
Then that part of the owner keeping the gate open and allowing the dog to go out. I mean, the owner must have known that the dog is unpredictable.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that was very irresponsible on his part.
Correct.
So all these factors have to be taken before keeping a pet dog.
Right. Sanchita, this whole thing of trophy dogs and trophy pets came up a little bit in this discussion. So in the sense that what is this whole big urge to have trophy dogs and trophy pets?
It's prestige. What is expensive is prestige. It's as simple as that. I would like to continue one point that Ms. Alvarez mentioned. She said, is the dog trained? I'll go one step forward in this particular incident that happened, and I want to ask, was the human trained? Like what I understand, when a dog bites you, you cannot pull the dog away, but if you lift the behind two legs of the dog will leave the bite. Was the human trained that your dog, which is so ferocious and powerful, if he bites somebody, what you have to do?
Right.
Was he trained in terms of, if there is a dog bite, you have to wash the wound for 10 minutes under running water so that you are safer?
Right.
Was the man taught to do that? No. So before you are training a dog, tell the man, I'm not saying you're bringing a dog, you're buying a dog, and you're not even trained what to do with the dog. Not fair.
Yeah, can you just elaborate a little bit on quick, first aid that can be given or quick healing that can be done in terms
Okay, so if a dog comes and catches you, this is about presence of mind.
Right.
You have to, somebody else, you can't do it, somebody else has to catch the hind leg of the dogs and not leave. When you're holding the hind legs of the dog cannot turn back and bite you. That's not a possibility, so you are absolutely safe. If you are a little more, what I would say, no dogs, catch the nape.
Right.
But such a big Rottweiler, you cannot catch the nape.
Right.
So behind legs, and he leaves the bite, he's forced to leave your bite. And then wash your wound under running water for at least 10 minutes. Running water. Please do not compromise on that.
Okay.
And then rush to your nearest health center.
Okay. Tell me.
But I would like to tell, I had two Labradors in my farm, both males. Okay, the first male was very aggressive, and then there was this neighbor in Miramar. My farm is in Sangay, and this neighbor said, please, you have to take my Labrador also a male. And I was sure that they would fight, but I just decided, because there was no option, I had to take them and keep them somewhere. So I took this guy, and the moment they saw each other, I came to know they were going to fight. Okay, I tried discouraging my dog, the original one who was there in the farm. No, you will not fight. But he would not listen. He would not listen. And when they started fighting, Sanjita, I tried to separate. I tried to lift the back legs. I even threw a huge stone on top of this other fellow who was attacking him. He didn't budge. So when dogs start attacking, or any animal, you can't pull, it's very difficult to pull them away.
So I
I mean,
had
I'm not surprised that those people also could not separate
Right.
attacking that
Well,
child.
if they
the girl
attempted
child.
at all, I don't
Yeah.
think
With,
even
ro-
attempts
with
were
Because
Rottweilers, they call
they
it
don't
locked
see anything
in.
else. They are just attacking
They're
the
locked
victim.
into something.
They're locked.
They're
Yeah,
locked
yeah,
into
they
something.
get
I
locked.
was
You cannot
saved
get out.
twice by this technique. Once, German Shepherd, abused German Shepherd, which had come to the shelter, caught me here. And that day I knew that I'm dying, I won't live anymore. Suresh, you know Suresh, he taught me that trick once, and again a second time. I was bitten very badly by a lab. I was hospitalized for 15 days, and people laugh at me. What, a lab bit you? How is that possible? And again, he caught the behind legs.
Right.
And
There
the
you
dog
go.
left the
You
bite.
can't tell that only Rottweilers are aggressive.
Correct.
Any breed can
Vice
be.
versa.
It's temperament of a dog. You know?
Anything that's
Right.
big and knows it's powerful.
Vivek, coming back to the incident,
Yes.
and if you could, you've heard everybody else
Right.
and spoken about, and they've all spoken about what should have ideally been done.
Right.
In this case, what was the help rendered to the two children or their mother? How did the family of the owners behave exactly? How quickly did the help come? In this, we've written about it, but if you can just elaborate on this, and also at the same time. Are local health centers equipped to handle this, or you definitely need to run to GMC to do this? Because that's another aspect we'll talk about. But firstly,
yes.
what happened that day?
So basically, the only reason why this news became a headline was the Gerau. Okay. Now, why this thing has happened? As Auchan Asle, Kidak Zale, because after the incident, none from the owner's family had come or approached the victim. कोणूच येवना तांच्या घरा कडल्यान कोणूच विचारपाक येवना की बाबा कितें जालें कशें जालें पुलिसाक आपया एम्बुलन्साक आपया कोणीच कांय एक्शन घेवना ओके सो थंयसर आमकां म्हणजे आमच्या वाड्या वयल्यान जे आसले तांकां खुबूच हें मातशें मनाक लागलें की बाबा आयज तुमी तुमच्या सुण्यानी आमकां आमच्या भुरग्यांक घास मारला पूण तूं तांकां विचारपाक येना It's like it's not right.
It's not nice.
It's not right. It's not nice also because as a humanity तुम्ही मातशें विचारप तरी आसता तेच हांव the other day also त्या दीस विचारतालो ओनराकूच डायरेक्ट की बाबा तुमच्या घरा कडल्यान कोणूच येवना वाय नोबडी हॅज टेकन एन इनिशिएटीव यो आनी तरी मातशें विचार तांकां की ती धाकटी भुरगीं और गरीब फॅमिली म्हूण तुमी अशें करता सो मिस्टेक हॅज हॅपन्ड ओके ना ओनर वॉज नॉट देर ओनर हॅज अग्रीड ही हॅज अपॉलॉजायज ऑल्सो दॅट डे पण कशें आसा अपॉलॉजी जाली म्हणटकच जावना कित्याक मनीसपणी आमकां दवरचें पडटा ओके समज तुवें त्या दिसूच पयलींच तुवें सांगिल्लें एक्शन घेतिल्ली तुवें तुमच्या फॅमिली भितरल्यान कोणी तरी सांगलें की बाबा एम्बुलन्साक आपया पुलिसाक आपया हांकां घेवन व्हरुया जाल्यार हें कांयच जावचें नाशिल्लें ओके बिकॉज द एक्शन हॅज बीन टेकन देर एंड देर इटसेल्फ बट नथींग हॅज हॅपन्ड बिकॉज ती भुरगीं जी आसा तांकां ऑलमोस्ट एक वर रावचें पडलें रगत सगळें व्हांवलें ओके रगत जितले व्हांवपाचें आसलें व्हांवलें एम्बुलन्स पावली एम्बुलन्सान तांकां व्हरता म्हण लेट जालो सो दीस वॉज लायक व्हेरी डिसरिस्पेक्टफूल फॉर दोज दॅट पर्टिक्युलर फॅमिली अशें म्हणूं येता ऑर द विलेजीस कित्याक भायर सरले आयज कित्याक हें आयज ह्या भुरग्यांक जालें फाल्यां आमच्या भुरग्यांकूय जातलें आनी समज त्या भुरग्यांक आमच्या भुरग्यांक समज जालें ऑर कोणाकूय जालें जाल्यार परते ओनर येवचे ना परते तुमी म्हणटले सॉरी म्हणटले आनी तुमी वयतले काय की आमची मिस्टेक न्हू ही मेडाची मिस्टेक काय की गेट ओपन आसली आमकां खबर नासली काय म्हणजे हे एक्सक्युजीस तुमी दीत रावतले असले आमकां म्हणजे हे आमकां उलोवपाचेच नासले तेका लागून आमी मुद्दम सगळेच जाण गांववाले येयले आनी तुमकां विचारपा खातीर हो एक आमी प्रयत्न केलो त्या कारणां खातीर त्या ओनरांनी आमकां म्हटलें की अशें जावचें ना पण जावपाचें जालें हें म्हजें हें आसा आनी सेकेंडली जेन्ना हॉस्पिटलान व्हेलें तेन्ना ओनरान तरी एक मातशें हॉस्पिटलान वचून विचारप जाय आशिल्लें की बाबा कशी आसा भुरगीं कितें आसा भुरगीं तूं मॅनेजरांक धाडटा परत दॅट इज ऑल्सो नॉट रायट तुजे सायडीसून तुंय वच न्ही तुवें वचप एक खबर घेवप आसता मॅनेजरांक धाडप दॅट इज ओके बट तूं ब्रेकफास्ट लंच बीन धाडटलो बट देन तुजे एक मनीसपणान तुंय मातसो वचून विचार गेला आसत तूं पण आमकां जशी न्यूज कळ्ळा की बाबा मॅनेजरूच वयतालो सो अशें आसा there is owner नाशिल्लो because owner was also telling us की बाबा if I was there this wouldn't have happened पण ओनर खंयची गेट पळयतलो आसलो ओनर तरी डायरेक्ट गाडी घेवन वयतलो आसलो भितर ती गेट समज एनीवेज ओपन आसतलीच आसली आनी तो इन्सिडंट जालोय जाल्यार ओनरा कडेन आय डोंट नो कंट्रोल जातलो आसलो काय ना पण हय हे सगळे इन्सिडंट जाले सो लोकूय आमचे खूब बेजारले लोकांनी सामके स्ट्रिक्ट सांगले त्या दीस की आमकां ही दोनूय सुणी नाका ताजे कडेन रॉटवायलरूच न्हू ताजे कडेन पिटबुलूय आसा घरा कडेन ओके सो आमकां दोनूय सुणी नाका वी आर नॉट अगेन्स्ट डॉग्स हांवूय म्हाकाय खूब सुणी लायक ओके अशें ना की म्हजे कडेन लॅब आशिल्लो पूण तो ना आतां पूण एनीवेज सो खूब वायट दिसता जेन्ना सुणी पयस वतकच म्हणजे डॉग्स जेन्ना आसता तेन्ना ती पयस वतकच खूबच वायट दिसता पूण असल्या कारणान जेन्ना तूं सांबाळपाक तांकां शकना जाल्यार तांकां घरान दवरून जशें आमचे पॅनलांनी म्हटलां की आमकां शो पीस नाका आमकां ट्रॉफी नाका कळ्ळें न्ही तूं तांकां ट्रेन करता जाल्यार बरें करून ट्रेन कर असो ट्रेन कर की बाबा ते तुज्या उतराचेर वचपाक जाय अशें मॅडमीन म्हटलां गेट ओपन सुद्दां आसलें जाल्यार तेणी गेट ओपन आसा काय ना तें तेणी पळोवंक जाय आनी तेणी स्टेप बॅक घेवंक जालो असलें ट्रेनींग आसपाक जाय आशिल्लें सो दीस इज द रिजन वाय ऑल विलेजीस वेंट अहेड to talk to them. We called police, we called, I mean, one of the resident from there called ambulance, and he has taken care of that, sending to the hospital and all.
Sure.
So that's how the thing went.
Noma, what are the laws or if there are any judgments or regulations governing incidents such as these? In the sense that what are the legal responsibilities that dog owners have, and does the law give you that give the victim the power to take action if they are
See, like any incident where there is violence done upon you, you can always take action, you can always file a police complaint,
Right.
and the police have rightly taken them under provisions of the IPC Act,
Right.
because then it's a case that is filed, there will be penalties, there should be compensation,
Right.
and a person who's attacked can take such action.
Right.
Often they don't file a complaint because sometimes they try out of court settlement.
Correct.
They make payments to the party and say we'll compensate you and so on for it.
Right.
There are regulations regarding the breeding of dogs. There are breeding of dogs rules.
Okay.
There are rules about pet ownership. The Animal Husbandry Department framed guidelines. They framed a number of guidelines for the management of stray dogs, pet dogs. Things like you do not, if you have a pet, do not take it for walks in areas where children are playing. Take them out, because all dogs have to be exercised, and they have to be, they cannot be kept in the confines of the room. At the same time, the open spaces of let's say a gated community are for people as well. So there's a conflict between some people who are afraid of dogs, some people who don't like dogs, some people who don't like cats.
Right.
Things are there, and society has to get on. So therefore there are rules framed about how you feed the animals, where you should feed them, the timings that you should take them for walks and so on, and that you have to exercise them. Because if you don't take them out, that is a cruelty to the animals.
Right.
Now I was hearing him say, for instance, that the people are saying we don't want these dogs. It's a natural reaction. But think about it. You are penalizing two dogs who have not understood what they have done in society.
Yes.
They have not understood. They have followed their natural instinct,
Right.
and the errors made by the humans trying to pull them back when their focus was on something else, maybe they would have sniffed and gone back on their own. One doesn't know. But the moment the maid exercised her option to pull it back, it meant that I am making the dog do something which I want. I presume it did not recognize the maid as its owner. It considers it lower in some manner. It is not willing to listen to the maid. Its eyes are locked in on the two children, and it then goes forward.
Right.
So the mistakes of the humans, now the society says we don't want these dogs, which means that if it happens, if the dogs are taken away, you are putting two dogs who have a home, you're putting them somewhere where all of a sudden they have no owner, they have no parent, they have no family. That is tragic for the dog. The fault is the owners in this case.
Right.
The fault is not the dogs. So Joy, I'd just like to read you a little bit about these dogs for the viewers, because I did a little research.
Yeah, sure.
See, it says that the Rottweiler is a robust working breed of great strength, descended from the mastiffs of the Roman legions. They used to use it when they attacked other countries on their marauding trips.
Right.
Later on, when the Roman Empire declined, they became tough dogs who used to guard the infantry and the cavalry and so on.
Right.
Later on, they became work dogs in a town called Rottweil in Germany. There they used to protect the herds which were going from the pasture to the market, protecting them from bandits robbers. Look at the kind of dogs
right.
that they are.
Yes.
They are such strong dogs, and that is how they earned the name of butcher's dog. A butcher's dog or a Rottweiler. Later on, they became police dogs, personal protectors, and they are capable of heavy duty tasks. But they have changed little in form or in temper since their original Mastiff breed. So these are
Fantastic
dogs.
description, yes, yes.
These are dogs which are self-willed. They are protectors of the family, and if they are properly trained, their temper can be calmed. Otherwise, they are aloof with strangers unless you socialize them, and they hate to lose. They do not like to lose because they are self-willed. Did the owner know all this
yes,
when he
no,
bought this dog?
Correct.
Does he know how to control this animal if it goes out of control? Has he trained the dog to listen to stay? Has he trained the dog to listen to the maid?
Right.
If he is not trained the dog to listen to the maid, what's the maid going to do? So
A couple
these
of quick
issues
questions
are
before
there.
I
Yeah.
go to Dr. and Sanchita. See, Norma, you spoke about various guidelines that are in
Yes.
place and the guidelines laid down by different bodies, the Animal Husbandry Department, and maybe even the municipalities have certain guidelines. So, how long have these guidelines been in existence? Would you reckon?
See, the guidelines are there over the last few years. They are not very long because earlier people did not really keep these breed dogs. Now they are beginning to become more and more prestige and a symbol of prestige. I own a Rottweiler, I own a pit bull, and so on. And while the guidelines are there, the method for enforcement is not there. I don't know whether these dogs are registered with the Panjim,
That's my next question.
with the Corporation
Yes,
of Panji.
yes.
What is the point of registration? The corporation must know how many dogs are there in their territory, pet dogs,
Right.
which of them are these powerful breeds, these strong breeds, what precautions are they to take, should they check the owners, because in countries abroad, they also check whether the dog is trained or they make the owner train. You cannot keep such dogs without training. So they have got to pass what is called an obedience test.
Right. Okay.
I don't
The
know
owner
how
has
they
to
do
pass
it.
Ah.
The
dog has to
the
pass
dog
it,
has
the
to
owner
pass
has
it.
to-
It's
yeah.
not a competition. It is whether you can control the dog. Who's the owner? I think they find out several things. But here we have these rules. Basically, it is regarding the pets. How many pets can you keep in a small confines? Are the pets exercise? Where can you take them? They must be exercised.
Right.
What kind of food? A few things like that. That is what
There's
is
a particular
the
section called
regulations.
289. What does that specifically say?
Of the
IPC,
IPC.
yes.
Basically, base 289 is about the complaints which can be filed
Right,
by
right.
citizens
Citizens, yes.
against persons
Right.
for
Negligence.
any negligence which is done to them.
Right.
In this case, there's a clear case of negligence. The negligence starting with the gate being opened.
Right.
The negligence continuing with the person not knowing how to control the dog. The negligence continuing with trying to restrain and pull back a dog which you cannot pull back. The negligence in not attending to the injured persons and instead expecting them to fend for
Series
themselves.
of,
Series of
negligent
negligence.
behavior, yes.
I mean, I cannot think of more abominable behavior than this. I can understand and maybe forgive that the gate was left open by mistake. But the series of incidents after that is simply not acceptable. And lastly, what he said about, you don't visit the place and you don't visit the people, you don't go to their aid, you expect them. And they seem to be poor people.
Sure,
If they were rich, wealthy people with cars and so on, they would have, run over your dog instead.
Correct.
I mean, this
Here
is the
the-
kind of
here it was
harshness that
shockingly
would have
the
happened.
mother was just aimlessly walking with them, not knowing what to do.
And after
Absolutely
they were
helpless,
bitten,
yes.
Sujoy, she
Yes.
was turning back and walking with bleeding children
Yes.
towards her house, trying to get her husband on the phone.
Right.
When some neighbors saw it
Yeah.
and
Correct.
took them to some garage
Yeah, made them
and
rest and all
kept
that.
them
Yes,
down,
correct, yes.
shouldn't the owner have taken them into his house?
Correct.
I just want to
okay.
add, sir, over
Yeah,
here.
sure.
Okay. As ma'am said, taking the dogs out, the society doesn't want them. It's not that society doesn't want them, but then it's a sad part that we don't want that second incident to happen.
Right.
Because if such thing happens, then again there will be a lot of problem which may create to the owner, which we don't want again to happen. Okay. So for the safer side, We just want to move them to some safe place where even they can, be quiet at their place, and we are also safe at our end, because they are
There is
small
no
kids.
safe place.
Yeah, that is
There is no
That's something
safe
I would
place.
like to speak about.
Yeah, you could respond to that.
You would be shocked to know the kind of dogs, these big breed dogs that a shelter has to pick up,
Yes.
because what they would do is they will go and abandon the dogs in some area where these dogs will start biting people. We will get a call to pick it up, and then imagine how the shelter workers' lives are put at risk. And such a huge animal is in a kennel for the rest of his life. Is that fair?
So how do you handle this thing in a situation like this?
So, okay, just to give you
No,
a very
here I would just say there's earlier we used to believe this, and I think it is true. Is once a dog bites a human and gets away with it, at least that he
He'll do
thinks that he
again.
gets away, he's going to bite again.
he's got away with
So
it.
that danger is always there.
And
Yes.
danger is there.
Yeah.
So his fear
It's
is
genuine.
Is genuine.
Yeah, okay.
But what will happen is, I'm not saying by you, I don't mean you. These dogs are going to be just released in some area, and then the shelter gets a call that there is a very dangerous pit bull or a very dangerous Rottweiler roaming around here. The shelter boys go pick it up because that's our mandate. Ultimately, human life comes first.
Right.
So we pick up the dog, we bring it to the shelter. He remains in a kennel. You feed him, you cannot take him out for a walk. He is in a 1 meter by 1 meter kennel which is meant for a sick, injured animal. And it breaks the spirit of that dog. What have we done? We have paid 50,000 rupees, we have got a dog, we have abandoned it, and this is what it is. This is what the shelters face.
Some amount of aggression is also connected to the testosterone of the dog. So in some cases we try castration and the dog pipes down.
No, but what I'm saying is also, do we have, and either of you can answer this, do we have enough facilities to kind of handle cases or handle animals like this with a lot of care? One is not necessarily saying that one has to be, even the dogs who've bitten need some care and attention. So the point is, are there enough shelters, are there enough trained people to handle these kind of cases?
I would like to point out 2 cases to you. There was one pit bull that was walking from T.S. Mistry to Altin, that slope in Panjim. Abandoned, must have given birth multiple times. So was restrained in the house, was picked up by the shelter, brought, sterilized. We named her Bella. But she was ferocious. She would just talk to one staff person. So initially she was in a kennel. Slowly we released her out. 6, when the shelter would close, she would be released out. She became friendly, but only to that one person, and she wouldn't bother anybody else. That was one case, and right now there is a Rottweiler at the shelter. Again, abused case, tied up whole day, whole night, was very ferocious. It has taken us about 8 months to release the dog now when there are no visitors. So inside the shelter when there are no visitors, that fellow is released and he doesn't bother us, we don't bother
But
it.
that Rottweiler was a pet, somebody's
pet,
Always.
neglected
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
Somebody's pet
Neglected
only.
so much, lost a limb because of maggot wound. But it has taken 8 months of love and care and discipline.
But in this case, doesn't the law provide for any action against this inhuman?
Do we have the time? Okay, as a shelter, as a rescuer, I would rather spend my time, energy and money on the welfare of the dog than go and fight with those stupid humans and try to teach them a lesson. Doesn't work. I would rather do this than that.
Yeah, but more and more such quote-unquote humans get released into the system and they roam around by being inhuman.
We have SPCAs now.
Yes.
North and South District.
Yes.
We have already constituted, and the people there, the volunteers, many people have volunteered, are very active, and anybody keeping animals, punished in a
Died.
cage or something, are immediately pulled up by the SPCA.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we have some relief. While we concentrate on the
So
animal,
these
there are
SPCAs were recently constituted.
recently,
Yeah,
2
about,
years?
Just
3 years
yeah,
back.
3
Yeah,
years back.
3 years back.
So they tackle the humans. whilst the shelter and the rescuers tackle the animals and see to it that
Basically, they look at cruelties done to the animals.
Right.
So if the dog is chained 24 hours in a small space, not given a walk,
Ferocious.
and so on, that is considered a cruelty to animals.
Right.
But I'd like to tell you of some things which are done in other countries.
Right.
One of the a few states I think it's in Europe, they have banned pit bulls, Rottweilers, and Doberman pinschers. They have
They've banned them
They have
completely.
banned them.
So you cannot,
But in the US, they have been struggling to try and see whether you can ban them, but they have
Right.
not. Other things that can be done is some places have a mandatory sterilization.
Okay.
We don't
Yes.
have a mandatory sterilization,
Yes.
and I think
all
that
over the country, or this is just Goa?
just no, not in Goa.
all over the country.
All over the country, all over the country. But we don't have mandatory. See, if we pick up a stray, we sterilize it.
Right.
But if it's a pet owner, it's the choice of the owner.
This consent has to be taken.
Yes.
We do
We
have a
beg.
stipulation in the Goa Municipal Act
Yes.
The
that dogs have to be registered and of course sterilized.
sterilized.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but how many people follow this?
Oh,
It's
they
not being
fight
imposed.
back, saying
It is
my
not being
dog, I
imposed.
Because you
decide.
as a doctor, when a dog or pet comes, can't you, for example, say that, okay, have you registered the dog? Do you have
Yeah,
registered-
this question has come many
Right.
times. In
Yeah.
fact, we were asked whether we can tell our hospitals to refuse treatment.
Right.
But it is not possible to refuse
You cannot
treatment to a
refuse.
dog. No?
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
You cannot do that.
But we advise people. But
Right.
you know, the municipalities also have to play a more active part in this to you know, get this.
I mean, it
owners-
just needs to
owners
become some
register
kind of
the
a priority,
dogs.
which
It
is
has to be people's movement.
right.
Yeah.
They have to lead it. You can't
has
expect
to be people's
institutions to do it all the time. Right?
See the sterilization of, there are dog breeding rules. So the
Right.
person will say, I'm not a breeder, I'm not doing it as a business. But if you are breeding, suppose the animal mates with another and gives pups. Now you will hand the pups to your nearest friends and relatives and say, take this pup.
Right.
And that is a Rottie. That's a
Right.
Rottweiler pup. It's going to become exactly like this dog. But one of the things I feel that should happen for these big breed dogs, why should the municipality not force them to take out insurance?
Right. Right.
Take out an insurance policy. If there is a third party injury, there is a payment which can be paid straight off.
Right.
This is done in other countries. This I am aware of. That there is a liability insurance if you have these big breeds. Not for smaller breeds, but that's something at least
But
there
this
would
can be
some
made mandatory either by the municipality or somebody can make it mandatory.
somebody has
right?
to think about it.
Actually, we had a meeting with that earlier Secretary of Urban Development.
Yes.
Right.
Tariq Thomas.
Tariq Thomas.
Right.
And he had already started to make it mandatory for all the municipalities, starting with municipalities, because you know, the
Yes.
concentration
Then
of dogs
village
is
management,
more.
yes.
To get all these dogs registered and sterilized.
Sterilized.
Yes.
Because today, I think, if I don't know, but most of the puppies are from these owner
Offspring of-
dogs,
Yes,
not the stray
exactly.
dogs.
out,
Right.
they mate, and then the shelters are stuck with the
so
pups.
you're saying most of the pups are from
Of the
these
owner
dogs?
dogs.
I see.
Yeah.
Not from
In Panjim, you will rarely find unsterilized dogs, but you find puppies. So where are they coming from? From
Right.
homes.
So Joy, if you see a box of puppies kept outside the shelter, do you think any stray mother has brought it? Or do you think it's an owner?
No, no.
Yeah.
A bag of pups,
Polythene,
a
Right.
bottle
box
of the... They are all coming from people who
Homes.
have homes, who have got the pups, and they say, now we don't want to kill them ourselves, let's put them outside the shelter. They are all dogs which are, they will be mixed breed, but they will have characteristics
Right.
of
Right.
the
And
parent
there
dog.
was also a proposal during the meeting with Tariq Thomas that we will keep the fees for registration of indie dogs very low.
Some 50
you know,
rupees, I think.
and
what
these
is proposed.
Rottweilers and pedigree dogs very high,
high, right.
to discourage these people to keep the
Do this,
dogs,
correct.
and these poor people who will not be able to afford will be able to register also.
Namal, can I just
But
quickly come
somehow
to
it didn't go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll quickly come through from pet dogs. Let's get to the management of strays, because
Yeah.
the same kind of problems would happen even with stray dogs. I mean, you may have the odd ferocious stray dog who may bite, not bite. But I would say that I think the shelters and others doing much better job in managing of the strays than would think. But what are the challenges that come about with the supposed increase of population of stray dogs?
See, the shelters have been sterilizing dogs now for the last 2 decades, I would say, but
Right.
intensively over a period of time. And yet there are dogs being brought to the shelter. That is one, new puppies. The second is that we are now overloaded with dogs, shelter dogs, and we do not have enough people who can adopt them.
Right.
So the shelters also cannot
Take them in,
absorb
yes,
so many
yes,
dogs.
yes.
We release the dogs which are sterilized. We encourage the people to sterilize the dogs. But now and then and occasionally, the dog biting incidents do happen. When, of course, we go to the area, we check that the dog is, whether the dogs in that area were sterilized or not sterilized. We pick them up because sterilization will reduce the aggressiveness in the dog.
Right.
But it cannot stop the dog from barking or biting. It
Sure,
doesn't
sure.
do that. It prevents new dogs. It
Right.
prevents increase in the population. So there is an intensive sterilization procedure which is going on, which the Animal Husbandry Department is funding. There are some new regulations which have come in, which have sort of brought a temporary halt, but we hope we get over that and that the program continues. But the issue of there are areas which are not covered by the programs because there are only so many NGOs and there is so much more area. So there are
Right,
some
right.
areas which are not covered at all, and there the dogs are and they're not sterilized. People complain. It's always related to the garbage. The garbage bins
Right.
have the dogs around them. Anybody passing by becomes a threat to the dogs who are around there. They bite, they attack. That issue remains.
See,
So these
I
problems.
want to say something.
Yeah.
Is just before I retired, 1 year before, we had constituted the State Monitoring Committee for Animal Birth Control. And it has been constituted already and meetings have been held.
Right.
And it was realized during the meetings with all the local bodies. Local bodies are responsible for strays, right?
Right.
That it is not possible for each local body to have a shelter for animals. So it was agreed.
But why not?
Because there
too small.
are 191 or 92
local
village
panchayats.
panchayats.
Oh, you're talking of the village
So-
panchayats.
Village
yes.
panchayat.
Yeah.
So we decided to have it taluka
Taluka
wise.
wise. Yes,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So
That's fine,
the block development officers were requested to identify a place where these NGOs can set up a well-equipped shelter, and sterilizations falling under that area would be carried out for all the panchayats in
Right.
that area.
Yes.
Right. How has that worked?
But that has not seen the
Light of
light
day.
of the day.
Since how many years?
This was all done during Tariq Thomas, and after that,
Which
But
year
before
would this
that,
This would be
no,
this
SMC was conducted by him, and he had taken.
But can you
active
put a date or year to it so we can understand the vintage?
This
of
was done in 2020.
Oh, so it's been 3 years.
2021.
2021
Yes. So
it's been-
January, February, March,
So it's been
somewhere
literally
there.
Just
almost
before
3
he-
years.
And then he got
nothing has
transferred.
happened after that. Is it?
After that, nothing.
See, while this was a proposal that was brought in, Panjim is already looking after, PAWS is already looking after Greater Panjim. In the sense, it's dogs come from where, not Panjim. Taleigao, Merces, Old Goa,
Right.
Ribandar.
Right.
So we started already covering that.
and People for Animals in Mormugao looks after the whole of Mormugao Taluka.
Right.
All the
And Ponda as well.
Ponda
Ponda
is
is
not
another.
able to continue to do over the whole because there are 19 panchayats and
I
it's
see.
a much larger area.
Right.
So we do about 7 or 8 of them are under our control. You need another shelter to do the second
But
half.
what you're saying is beyond these two talukas, the other talukas don't have the
They don't
say
have-
shelter, protection and guidance of NGOs.
Literally,
no, there is-
literally, Sange, nothing is there. So
There
they
is
have
a
to have-
Let's talk about
WWF.
Porvori.
For
There's
animals and
nothing.
dogs. Okay.
Porvori, I go to work,
For pet welfare, animal welfare,
stray
looking
animal
after
welfare,
strays,
there's
nothing.
nothing.
So there's a big gap.
There are
Also,
big gaps in the areas.
No, that's being dogs being territorial.
Sterilized.
No, territorial also because they have their own areas to. You
No,
know,
you sterilize
Huh.
them. If you sterilize them in 6-7 years' time, you see the population coming down.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
So you act now for your 7 years down the line.
And these sterilization programs have to be done on target basis.
Okay.
So we had even allotted targets to every taluka based on the population of dogs in each taluka.
And that is, I mean, nothing has happened so far.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So
I'm
just
happy
that's
that
the-
I guess Taleigao Panchayat is tied up with PAWS.
PAWS
Or
does,
is
PAWS
collect-
does Taleigao, Mershe, Kurka, Santa Cruz, Raibandar.
Okay.
We don't discriminate. Doesn't matter which
Area it is.
which area you come
As long
from.
as it's in the
as long
taluka.
as it is gets done.
Iswadi,
And
basically
I'm not
Iswadi
burdened
taluka.
with extra puppies.
Right,
Iswadi
right,
Taluka.
right.
I'm okay picking up dog from wherever.
We are thankful to you, ma'am.
Yeah, Vivek, we'll wind up. We've got about 5 minutes, but before we do that, just a quick last thoughts on this particular incident. How are you planning to take it forward? Are you all planning to push this legally? Do you feel justice has already been done because the owner has been kind of arrested and he's apologized? So
Yeah.
is the matter closed? So just tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so we being villagers from Taleigao, we really don't want to, do any kind of registration as far as case FIR, no FIR, nothing, because we have already, our plan was just to, a plan means we just wanted a, what I can say,
The issue to be
a justice.
registered and for
No, I
people
don't
to-
want. We don't want any FIRs to be registered against a person. Okay, we just wanted a justice given to a family in a form of compensation or something like that. Okay, and yes, we just want the owner to look after the kids who are there, because the family is also not that financially strong. Okay, and yes, henceforth also that this shouldn't happen. This is what we expect from the owner also.
Yeah. Noma, how do you sum up and see, and so the society doesn't see incidents of this nature? Do the laws have to be more stringent? Do we need newer laws?
I think we have adequate laws, but I think looking after animals is not a priority with municipalities or with the authorities.
Right.
And whatever laws are there for registration, for sterilization, they must be enforced. Municipalities don't bother to enforce. The laws are there, but they don't bother. They don't send their staff around to make a survey and find out how many dogs are there in the area, how many pet dogs, are they sterilized or not. And I would request members of society, please do not get yourself a pet dog which is of these aggressive, strong breeds. I won't use the word ferocious, strong breeds,
Right.
unless you know the background of the dog, the characteristics of the dog, and you are prepared to undertake training yourself on how to handle that dog. And then you have the time, the energy and the discipline to train and handle that dog, because otherwise it is a liability on society.
Doctor, is the healthcare system equipped to handle cases like dog bites, dog attacks? Do the hospitals and the healthcare centers have enough, medicines and so on and so forth to take care of this?
You're talking about human health.
Human health. I want
Anti-rabies.
anti-rabies or essentially.
Yeah,
people
as
who've
far as
been
my knowledge goes,
victims of dog
I think even the urban health centers have been provided.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now they do intradermal
Okay.
vaccination.
Okay.
Of
No,
for
primary
rabies.
and tertiary care hospitals might have it, but private hospitals and clinics don't have it. So
No,
I would
probably-
advise dog bites, go to a government hospital, please.
right.
Yeah.
Please.
right. Yeah, dogs and snake bites. They
Go
normally
to the
say-
government
And
hospital.
such bites probably will involve taking the serum.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
the vaccine and there is the serum also. But when the bite is on the head or on the face, you have to take the serum.
Right.
But then again, these dogs must have been vaccinated, so the threat of rabies is not there.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Right. But ultimately, I'll wind up now and thank all my panelists. But I think there are a lot of takeaways as we've seen from this very interesting and riveting discussion. A lot of points have been there, a lot to unpack. But I think we should leave with a few points to ponder. Firstly, I think this whole management, care, and looking after of animals and attending to different kind of conflicts that happen is very much a priority that the municipal bodies and even the rural bodies should have, and that seems to be completely lacking. The stray dog issue, quote unquote, has been there for a long time, but as we've seen here, the sterilization program is absolutely abysmal. Meetings happen and decisions are taken, and for 3 years nothing is done about it. And at the same time, we also discussed how aggressive and strong animals are to be dealt with. Firstly, the takeaway is that, look, if you can't take care of it and if you can't train, don't get into this. Don't have trophy dogs, because they also have a mind of their own, and if that goes awry, then people in society could be harmed, and that's completely avoidable. And the blame goes on the dog and not, unfortunately, on the owner. And at the same time, I feel that there is a department called the Animal Husbandry Department, which has work to do, and at least get down to the basics and see this as a problem of society. Get the sterilization done, ensure that dogs and breeds are registered, let proper fines be imposed for any kind of violations, to see that these things do not happen. But at the end of the day, humans need to be human. They need to show some kind of compassion and the basic sense of civility when things like this happen. And it is a lack of this that has led to we sitting here and discussing dog bites on children. But ultimately it boils down to an inhuman person rather than a ferocious dog. Thank you so much for being here.